I'm trying to record myself painting. It's quite difficult when you don't have a tripod for your art. Anyway, this is Luna Nightshade with Everything is Vegan But. And one of the things I enjoy doing is art therapy. Art therapy is literally therapeutic. Getting energies, residual energies outside of your body from trauma. And, I've experienced quite a deal of trauma during this pandemic. Pretty much lost my family due to toxicity. And being a healthcare provider as a healer, and having 2 businesses be shut down, it kind of just because of the pandemic and all of that stuff at the start in 2020, it just kind of like I just went into depression, because it was like I was losing everything all at once. I call it my Job experience. For those who are biblical. And so I just decided that it was time for me to heal. I had been running 2 businesses. First business I started in 2012. A second one I opened up in 2016. And as a business owner, and I was a contractor with other therapeutic massage practices. I helped a lot of businesses in the town that I lived in because I always wanted everybody to succeed. And in wanting everybody to succeed, you often put yourself and your health on the back burner, which is what I did. And so when everything started shutting down, it kind of took its toll on my identity of who I am as a mother, as a healthcare provider, as a businesswoman, as a daughter, as a sibling, as an auntie, as a community activist. I mean, everything just the whole identity kind of just went up in the air. So I decided to start traveling. Just to take a vacation because I had never had a vacation. Do you understand? Most people think that business owners, they have lots of money and they can just do whatever, but that's not the case. A lot of times they may have a lot of money and then they'll go through times where they don't have a lot of money. So they have to learn how to budget those funds. And then there would be times where they're doing a lot of work and then all of a sudden they have this massive dry spell. And so again, they have to learn how to, a lot of time management, a lot of promotions and marketing. There's just a lot to invest in as a small business. And a lot of people don't realize that. And so when people argue about small business pricing, I kind of get upset because it takes a lot. And small businesses often contribute to the communities, and they do that for free. I have documentation of almost every organization that I worked with in the town that I was living in at the time, where I have invoices of $400 and up that I completely waived doing good work for the community to help with health, to expand people's knowledge of healthcare and just services. I mean, I lost a lot of money being a business owner, caring for a community, giving my all to a community. And so with that, I needed a break. I needed a break from touching. as a therapist, as a massage therapist, a touch therapist, an empath. An empath is someone who can feel other people's feelings. I am extremely sensitive. I have what is called mirror touch synesthesia, which allows me to touch people. I don't even have to touch them anymore. I can just walk by somebody and I know all the ailments that's going on in their body, what's going on with their organs. I mean, it's sickening sometimes to know in depth how much is going on with another person's body. But I had touched, as in massaged, over 4,000 people on a table massage. That's not including chair massages, which I would often do and have lines of people just ready to go. Some events I may do 100 people or so in one day. So, I mean, I was just constantly categorizing pains of a variety of people of different demographics, different causations and symptoms. I have in my body an internal bank of knowledge of health, of sickness and disease. I can now smell sickness and disease. I can smell it. A lot of healthcare professionals, people who who work in hospitals, who work in very long-term sickness, these people know what the smell of death smells like too. And mine gets so keen, I can smell it just by somebody walking by now. So I was kind of happy that I needed to stop working during this pandemic because, again, like I said, I had been touching over 4,000 people, and that's a lot of information. That was a lot of things, a lot of health that I needed to restore back into myself because I had given all the goodness of me out so that those individuals could then be healthy. So as I started this process of detoxing from secondary trauma, which is me listening and feeling and absorbing through my medical practice the pains and traumas of others, as well as processing my own pains and traumas, I needed a break. And art therapy was a component that I was starting just before the pandemic in 2019. Well, in 2018, I had went and spoke at a conference at MIT regarding art therapy and the way that I treat water to help heal the body. And that was a very successful conference. And I was starting to expand my business, starting to get more higher in elite clientele, politicians primarily. And so when in 2019, I started realizing that there were emotional traumas that I was dealing with the healing of my clients. It was no longer physical, but a lot of spiritual and emotional. And I found that art therapy was a form to help release these pains from people. So I started working and doing a lot of certification courses to help with treating these type of therapy, from childhood traumas to brain traumas and different things like that, brain gut content, awareness, stuff like that, to help people get over these things. In the meantime, fast forward to 2020, with this time being forced for us not to touch anybody, I was now allotted the time to detox from all of these residual traumas that I had absorbed, and from being a healthcare provider for over, nine years of almost every day. I mean, when I would look at my schedule, I would say, oh my God, I worked almost every day this month, or I had maybe 4 days off this month, or, it was time for me to rest. And so as I had been painting and working with clients in 2019, in regards to healing residual traumas. I just started painting a lot more, and I found that as I was painting, I would be thinking randomly about particular clients, and I would start releasing the connection through the art, releasing the traumas that these clients had. And what I found is, as I would paint these pictures, oftentimes those particular clients would see the work and comment, like, I love this. And they had no clue that they were in mind while I was detoxing and painting those pictures. And so I began to just do this more and more, and I started traveling, and I was putting my art in galleries. My art was in a variety of different galleries in Georgia, Savannah, Georgia. They were in restaurants in Georgia and St. Augustine and Panama. And then Spirit just kind of kept me moving towards California, where I eventually ended up. And I used to live here in the 80s, so it was kind of interesting to come back, because it was like I was going backwards in time to deal with some of my deepest, darkest childhood traumas, which were actually took place here in California. So as I established my art and practice, I also started healing foods, or working with foods. Now, as I travel, I always felt like it was very important to give back to the communities that I was visiting. So I would do a lot of volunteer work at different gardens. And then I just started hearing this, like, my spirit kept saying, plant this. When I would go to a farmer's market, I would get these delicious foods, and I had seeds left over. I kept hearing, keep the seed. And I'm like, what for? And then one day I heard, go plant this seed over there. And then I would plant it. And then before I knew it, not every day, but throughout the weeks, every week, I'm planting something. But I'm a vegetarian, and so it only makes sense, because plants take time to grow. They take time before they're able to bear fruit. And so me planting all the time is ensuring that I will always have food to eat. And so this is just part of the things I was doing. Now, in the meantime, I would be painting. Painting was one of the best ways for me to deal with trauma. And I found that people would start talking to me while I was painting. And I have no problem with that. And I found it even more interesting that not only did people start talking to me while I was painting, but they started talking about their troubles. And of course, I'm quite used to this as somebody who attracts people. I mean, I'm that person that people just tell their whole life story to. But I found that when I painted, I got even more enlightenment as to what was spiritually ailing the person. And so as I started working more with people, I noticed how much they appreciated certain pictures. It was like I was granted insight to very intricate parts of their life, things that they had never shared with others. And it was being revealed through art. Like, they didn't have to discuss these things. It would just come through. Now, I started to pick this up. Even if they were happy, I would pick up on good things or bad. It just depended on kind of like what spirit wanted me to know. For example, I was at a beach area and I saw that they were preparing for a wedding. And I said, I'm going to paint for the bride and groom. Now, I had never met these people or whatever. This was the staff setting up. So it wasn't even like I was picking up on people's vibes. I just said, I'm going to paint a picture for them. So I took a spot on a grassy knoll area and I just started painting. And what I painted was a jar, a table and a jar, like kind of like their setup that they had. And I thought I was going to be painting bride and groom, but I kept hearing, no, paint this jar, paint this jar. And as I was painting the jar, then I'm listening to the ceremony. And the bride and groom come out. They start saying their vows. And then they say, in honor of our vows, we ask that everybody in attendance take a pebble and put them in this jar. And this jar will be what we have to look at whenever we're in times of doubt. And we'll remember how much love these people have by each one of them putting these pebbles in this jar. And so I found it interesting because here, before the wedding even started, I was being told to paint this particular jar. And now I had no idea that it was actually a part of the ceremony and that it was going to bring meaning. So when I was done with the picture, I presented it to them. And the bride just started crying and was like, thank you. And I felt really good just knowing that I had tapped into their spiritual sacredness of celebrating their wedding. It wasn't just a picture of them. It was a picture of what would hold them together through hard times. So, I mean, I just say that to say, sometimes a picture is worth more than 1,000 words. And the more I paint, the better I feel. The better I feel. Truly, the better I feel. I started teaching myself how to paint with my left hand. Now, majority of my paintings are ambidextrous. Just learning how to deal with the mind. Look at that. I found that when my pictures were discombobulated, all crazy, not really making sense, the people who were talking to me were also not really making sense, kind of scatterbrained. So I found it interesting too, because the clearer they were with who they are, what they wanted to accomplish in our conversation, the better the imagery I was able to paint. I was like feeding off of their clarity or their insanity, so to speak. But I always thought it's really cool to paint. The other thing that I found interesting is that I love working with children. I find that it's a lot easier to heal children of traumas, even darker, some of the more complex traumas out there. I found it just more beneficial to work with children than it was adults, primarily because adults you can confront an adult about a truth, and if they're not ready to handle speaking upon it, they'll just deny it. Instead of just saying statements like, I am not ready to talk about this, or, such and such happened, but I'm not ready to dig into that issue. they'll just lie and say they don't want to talk about it. No, they don't say I don't want to talk about it. They'll lie and say nothing happened. Even though, again, I have over 4,000 interactions. So I'm fully aware of when someone has been traumatized and how they've been traumatized, because all the pains feel the same. They feel the same. They feel the same. And so, I don't know if anyone's ever seen that TV show House, where he would always, I found him to become very cynical when I was watching it. And now I know why. One of the things he used to always say is everybody's a liar or whatever. And he said that because, he would ask direct questions and he would get everything but the truth, because people were always trying to cover up things. And they don't even realize they're trying to cover up. That's what I found out, being such an in-depth healer, is that some people have no idea that they're trying to cover up something. But others do. There are plenty of people out there who know, let's get into this. Let's go ahead and get into it. Since we're getting into it, it popped in my head. There are people who know why they're infertile. They're infertile because they had an abortion or multiple abortions when they were young, because they were being out there and reckless. And they were not going to professionals like people at Planned Parenthood. They were going to these back alley type of people who were doing more to their bodies that they were aware of. They were mistreating their bodies. And because of that, they became infertile. And so then they get married, they get their lives together, and they do not tell their spouses that they already know they cannot produce children. They don't want to tell their spouse that. They don't want to tell their spouse that they were being reckless and when they were in their youth, because they're afraid that their spouse is going to leave them. So then they go and they have all of these treatments to try to have a child. And every time they get pregnant, then they lose it. And they lose the baby because their mentality of, I already know I have aborted babies. I don't think I deserve to have a baby. But they don't talk about these type of things. I do. I talk to the clients that know that they've gone through this. I've talked to them and I've helped them to gain clarity over what their thoughts are, gain dominion back over to healing those thoughts so that they can forgive themselves, so that they can become, good parents of the children that they want to bring in. But if you're not willing to face these truths about who you are and what you have done in your past, then they just keep coming back up as infertility issues. Now, not all infertility is like this. Again, I'm just giving an example. Some people may not like it, but it is the truth. It's a hard truth. It's a hard truth that I have to learn. And imagine me touching someone and I can feel it. I keep having the vision of you. And that was what would, I guess, disturb people sometimes with being so empathic, is that I could visually see some of the stuff that would be going on. Not projecting. I wouldn't know these people from a can of paint. They would just start crying and I would say, did such and such happen? And they would just start crying and they would be like, I've never told anybody about this. How did you know? Their muscles was just spilling the beans to me, giving me full-length videos of what was going on. Again, one of the main reasons I had to take a chill and stop doing the work. Believe it or not, being able to have visions and see into people's lives is not always that fabulous, okay? Yeah, a lot of people think they want that gift until somebody just accidentally bumps you in the hallway or in a market, and now all of a sudden you have a full-length video of their uncle and grandfather raping them. Come on, man. It's not something that everybody should want. It wasn't something that I wanted. It was just something that it was given to me that I was able to utilize to help people get over the traumas. And this is one of the ways that I did it, through art. Through art. I helped people, and I help people, not just helped as in past tense, because I still do it now. I help people to deal with their traumas. I help them. I help them. And there's a lot of people out there who are very gracious for the work that I do. But again, it took a toll on touching. Couldn't touch. I despised, I just started despising physical touch, because every time I was touching someone, just a handshake, I was coming in contact with whatever traumas they were dealing with. And throughout the pandemic, it became unbelievably clear to me that there are a lot of crazy people going around here. And there's plenty of YouTube videos and TikTok videos of people